Good afternoon, YouTube. DutyRon checking back in with another video. And today we're going to talk about a funeral home in Flatlands, Brooklyn, New York, with hundreds, in estimation, some say over 100 human remains left outside in U-Haul trucks. It's a hard thing to talk about, so if anybody suffers from any type of PTSD or if this topic is sensitive for you, I would recommend that you do not watch this video. It is definitely not for the faint-hearted. It is a video that's real and raw. I don't feel that people who are suffering from any type of PTSD or anxiety should watch or listen to this video. Thank you for joining. Welcome in. My name is DutyRon, retired NYPD detective, 20 plus years in the New York City Police Department. And I've seen a lot of different things over my time, and I talk about a lot of them. So if you're not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and you will get all notifications for all things DutyRon. Again, we'll get right into it. A funeral home in Flatlands, Brooklyn was yesterday not raided, but it was reported that they were raided by the NYPD, but they received, New York City Police Department received several dozen phone calls about a strong odor of human remains coming from the funeral home in Flatlands, Brooklyn, on Utica Avenue. The name of the funeral home is out there, and I mean, these people, and to all the funeral directors' credit, I have a lot of friends who are in the business. They are being taxed. They are being taxed very, very difficult. There's a lot of people who are passing away from COVID-19, and the hospitals are pushing the funeral directors to come and make the pickups. And funeral homes have, I worked at one for a short period of time doing carries, dignified carries on at the funerals for the coffin as pallbearer. So I worked in a funeral home. I know what it's like. And they do have very minimal amount of space for refrigeration. Each funeral home is family owned and operated, and a lot of them are older style. Some of them have been around since the early 1900s or earlier, and they have limited space for refrigeration. They are capable of probably handling 4 to 5, 6 bodies. Some of them might have more capacity, some of them might have less. But this funeral home in Flatlands, Brooklyn, it's a 6-3 precinct, was storing human remains in U-Haul trucks, unrefrigerated, outside of their business. And Utica Avenue is a combination of commercial and residential. And they were storing human remains in U-Haul, rented U-Haul trucks. I'm going to show you a quick clip from it. And one of my NYPD contacts that I called said that there was close to 100 or more bodies in those trucks, in the U-Haul trucks, unrefrigerated, and left. I don't know how they did it, but they took ice and put it in the back. I don't know if it was ice cubes or ice bags or dry ice or what they used, but they put ice in the U-Haul trucks to kind of preserve the bodies, to make it cool. But they were left there. They're talking about all month long that they were doing this, and the residents were making complaints, and nobody was, because it was so busy with COVID-19, they were only able to go on Wednesday, which was yesterday here in the United States. Here in New York, they were able to go Wednesday and see and come across this horrific scene. Now, whether they did this out of money and greed, or they did it because they just were overwhelmed and they took the bodies in to try to do the right thing, but that's not the right thing, to pile bodies on top of each other. Now, I did some research on this subject, and my friends who are funeral directors handle all funerals with dignity and respect, and they use the utmost amount of respect when they are handling human remains. So I tip my cap to all my funeral directors and my friends who are in this business. And I know that, there's always, I talk to you guys all the time about this, there's good and bad in every business. And this is maybe perhaps a case of someone who took on more than what they could take, or they were trying to get greedy and make more money and take in more human remains than they were able to physically handle. So I'm not going to pass judgment on them. It is a funeral home, yes. It is a funeral home in on Utica Avenue in Flatlands, Brooklyn. It's the 6th precinct, and the funeral home is a small front store in a commercial and residential neighborhood. There's a store right next door to it who has residents on top. It's a very small place. I'll show you a quick clip of it so you guys can see, but over 100 bodies stored in non-refrigerated trucks. Hello, Paul Peck Drywall. Thank you for joining. Guys, if you haven't shared out the stream, please share it out onto your social media. Send it out onto Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook if you have it. I'm going to share quickly onto Twitter because I did this broadcast pretty much on the fly. So I'm going to share it, and then I'm going to show you the news article real quick from New York here. All right, here we go. So again, my disclaimer to anybody who is a little squeamish, anybody who suffers from PTSD, this might not be something that you'd want to watch. This is a difficult situation. There was reports that the bodies were piled on top of each other in these trucks, in body bags, stacked on top of each other, and you'll hear some residents make some statements that are very, very sad. It's no way to treat a human being, no matter what their economic status is. So it is very, very unfortunate that this funeral director who runs this funeral home chose to handle these human remains in such a horrific fashion. I'm assuming that, and I don't know this to be true, 100%, but I'm assuming that they were COVID patients, COVID victims, and perhaps a mix of regular people who died from natural causes. But I would have to assume that it was a bulk of it was COVID related because of. We have 18,000 New York deaths, 18,000 New York deaths, and most of them are in the New York City area. All right, here's the report.
About a terrible story in Brooklyn. As many as 100 bodies found outside of a funeral home in trucks.
Unrefrigerated trucks. Eyewitness News reporter Jim Nolan begins our coverage tonight.
He's live in the Flatlands section with the new and disturbing details. Jim?
Today, those two U-Haul trailers had been parked in front of the Andrew T. Cockley Funeral Home for weeks. Neighbors complained about the odor coming from them. Finally today, the city and the state came in to check. Each of those two trucks contained 50 bodies waiting there, piled in there for some time. The city and state health workers who showed up at the Andrew T. Cockley Funeral Home on Utica Avenue today came upon a disturbing scene. The two U-Haul trucks parked in front of the home held as many as 50 bodies each. Most not in caskets, but body bags and in various states of decomposing. Neighbors for days have been taking video of the bodies dragged into the unrefrigerated trucks and stacked on top of one another.
They have bodies in the vans and body bags on top of each other, and
When you say on top of each other, on shelves or just right on top of each other?
some on shelves and some on just on top of each other.
Responding to complaints of the odor coming from the funeral parlor, the city and state stepped in today. Workers dressed head to toe in protective gear. They transferred the bodies to two refrigerated trucks provided by the city. It had all been going on a while.
I see bodies being carried out of here, all month in body bags. And
Right out onto the street.
right onto the street all month long. I seen them carried out. I can't believe how many bodies came out of there. It's amazing.
This funeral home is overcapacitated with human remains, and that is true.
Dr. David Penepent is a funeral director who teaches at SUNY Canton. He was brought in by the state to help here.
He got overwhelmed with the number of remains that he had, and he didn't know what to do, and I'm here to assist him in this operation.
Eyewitness News has shown other funeral homes, this one in Queens, that also had many bodies to handle because of the COVID-19 crisis. but they were handling them in accordance with the rules and with a proper respect for the dead and their families. What the state found when it got to the Cleckley funeral home today, and what neighbors have been seeing for weeks, was much different.
I've seen a lot of disrespect to dead bodies.
If they would do that to my father or my mother or my sister or my child, I would go crazy.
The number of people dying from the virus is, of course, lower now, but many funeral homes across the city are still behind
Horrifying.
and still trying to catch up from the peak. Clearly, this is one still struggling with the number of bodies coming in.
All right, so
At Metro, we know
again,
unlimited
guys,
data is more
you know,
important than ever. Switch and get our lowest.
I feel strongly about, dignity and respect for the deceased. Like I said, no good funeral director, no good funeral home would act in such a cruel fashion. If you're overwhelmed and you can't handle the amount of bodies that are coming into your establishment as a funeral director, I think you have, I think you have the responsibility to say, hey, I need help. And they failed to do that. They were trying to just handle it on their own, and they weren't handling it. They have to just, comes a time where they have to just say, no, we are at capacity and we can't. I called my friend from the precinct who responded out there yesterday. I spoke to a friend who works in that precinct, and he said it was like nothing he's ever seen in his whole entire career. It was borderline criminal. And now for those of you who are asking, were there any arrests or anything like that? No. There were summonses issued for failure to comply with public health code because of the leaking fluid coming out of the U-Haul trucks. I'm assuming it's from the ice that was melting inside there. All the bodies were in body bags. So I also read that on April 5th, another Brooklyn funeral home was doing the same thing, but they were storing the bodies out in their parking lot on like stretchers with tarps covered over them. So there's another funeral home, April 5th, that did a similar thing, and it was just total horrible. I mean, these are people who are just have no regard for human dignity and human life. There are quite a few funeral directors who broadcast on YouTube, and Carrie Northey is one of them. She's a really wonderful funeral director. I believe she's out of Ohio or somewhere in the Midwest. I'm not 100% sure of the state that she's in, and she is really an awesome YouTuber. I'm going to do a video with her on Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern. I'll link her channel down in the description down below. But this is beyond reproach. The mayor, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, and the Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams described this as despicable, disgraceful, just unacceptable. A life is a life, and if it could have been my family member, your family member, and these are all people's families. So to do what they did was really horrific. Hello, Glara. Thanks for joining. Thank you to all my Patreon supporters, my channel members, my all of my moderators that come in, and all of the people who subscribe to my channel on a regular basis. I greatly appreciate you guys. But for those of you who know me, you know that I speak about current events. I speak about things that are going on. 2 Environmental Control Board summonses were issued, 2 ECB summonses for unlawful, I believe it was for unlawful, I'm not sure of the wording. He told me what the wording was, but it basically was improper storage of a human remains. And it was not, that's not how the summons was worded, but he read the thing off to me. I'm going to call him again tonight, but I'm going to continue this conversation with Carrie on Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern. I know it's kind of early for a lot of people. Some of you guys are late night owls, but you know, it is horrific. Leave me comments down below on this. I know that each and every one of us are angry. We're disgusted by this type of behavior. Me, as a retired police official, as a retired police detective, there's no good words that I could say of how I feel about this. And tonight I may do a follow-up to this. This because I want to see and I want to hear about what their response is to what their thinking was. Like, why did they do what they did? There's no good reason why a funeral director those are the people who we're supposed to trust to respect and have a dignified service for our loved ones, not to pile them up in a U-Haul truck, unrefrigerated, out in the middle. We've had some days where it's been 60 and 65, and they said that people in the area said that these people have been doing this for weeks. They said that this has been going on for weeks. Now, if you hear this is going on for weeks, how many people went through this same situation? How many loved ones went through? Now, I get it. The crematories and all of the cemeteries are all backed up. I don't, know exactly how badly backed up they are, but I'm assuming that they're backed up weeks, maybe more than weeks going forward. But it's their jobs, the funeral directors, the funeral homes, it's their jobs to preserve the remains. If it's 2 weeks, they have to hold them. Then each of these funeral homes, these funeral directors should have rented refrigerated trucks. I read in an article that this particular funeral home said that their refrigeration system went out, but they also had, in addition to the 2 U-Haul trucks with 50 bodies each in them, they had human remains inside the funeral home, unrefrigerated as well. So they had to close off the whole block. The smell, the stench from the human remains was so strong that they closed off the whole city block. They had it all roped off. Hi, Donnie Color. Thank you for joining. Thank you to everyone. Black Rose, great to see you in here. Thank you, Josh, for being in here, and all my great channel members. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. This is a difficult one. I don't like to do videos about this, but this, was breaking last night, and it was happening during the day yesterday. And I have to say that, for me, there comes new lows when we have a pandemic, and there's over 18,000 deaths here in the state of New York. So you would have to imagine that, the funeral directors and the morgues are overwhelmed. Josh, thank you for the super chat. We have to understand that, here is a situation where it is difficult at best, and I'm not defending any actions. This is not a defendable action. But what I'm saying is, thank you, Glare, I appreciate that. Thank you for the super chat, Josh. What I'm saying is that all of the people in this industry are being taxed. Nobody plans for 18,000 deaths to happen in a 4-week period or a 5-week period. And that's what New York is dealing with, 18,000 deaths in a very short period of time. When I was a police officer and I started in 1991, we had 2,200 homicides in 1 year. We had 2,200 murders in New York City in 1 year. I was in and out of the morgue, the medical examiner's office. Every week it seemed like I was going to the medical examiner's office when that was happening in 1991. Now I'm showing my age, folks. Guy and Jackie, thank you for the super love. Thank you for that. In 1991, 2,200 murders happened over a 365-day period. That's a lot of murders. That's a lot of dead people. But this is 18,000 in 5 weeks. It is 4 or 5 weeks, 18,000. Hello, Laura Bruno. Thank you for joining. So I want to put this all in perspective here. Yes, they're all being overwhelmed, but when you cannot handle what's happening in your business, you have to make a phone call and you have to reach out. The city came there with a tractor trailer that's refrigerated. If they did that 3 weeks ago, they could have had this refrigerated tractor trailer there 3 weeks ago, and they didn't have to do this disgusting behavior of disrespecting the deceased. Disrespecting the deceased is the ultimate insult that you could do to one's family, to the departed. It's the worst thing that you could do. It's the worst mojo you'd ever want to have bestowed onto yourself. So that person, that funeral director, is going to have some real soul searching to do and have to answer to these horrific things. And in my eyes, I feel it's a crime, but it really, were no criminal charges. But in my eyes, I would say to myself, this guy deserves to be arrested. But at the end of the day, it's just a horrific situation that got let out of hand, and this funeral director is 1,000% responsible for these actions, for these bodies being dragged and piled on top of each other. You heard the residents, that guy in the car that was talking, you heard what he said. This has been going on for weeks. Hello, Rona's Vlog. Thank you for joining. All right, guys, there's no tampering. They were storing them inappropriately. The summonses that they received, I believe it was 2. One was for improper storage of human remains, and another one was an environmental control summons. So there's nothing with tampering. They weren't doing anything. There's no charge for tampering with a body. They're a licensed funeral home that are to take in, human remains. So, guys, much love and respect from my house to yours. If you have any comments that you want to leave in the comments down below. I answer all the comments. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all one word, DutyRon. Go subscribe to my Facebook, YouTube video share group. Check out my Discord group. We have a lot of stuff where we continue the conversations once the live stream ends. God bless the world. God bless America. And God bless each and every one of you guys. Thank you so much for joining. Donnie, thank you for being in here. Thank you, Chrissy, Paul Peck Drywall. Go follow all these great channels that are in here that come and participate in the DutyRon chats. Love and respect. I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you.